A true flagship with an affordable price? Poco came to crush the competition between Samsung and other Xiaomi phones in this price range with the Poco X7 Pro. This is Byteforge and let's get to the video. Poco X7 Pro has a totally different design from the previous generation, because if I'm being honest, it's more like the iPhone 16. Now, I ain't gonna say it's bad, but it's not a special either. It's made of plastic while being around $400, which is a bummer. And it's a glossy one, which is not my favorite. And you know what that Poco X7 Pro has a totally different design from the previous generation mid-ranges for a couple of years now, so Xiaomi gotta step up a little. While the back is made of plastic, Xiaomi insists on durability. Like they say, if you drop it for a meter, it's gonna be fine. But I mean, you can't predict if your phone is gonna drop or not, so you'd better use protection. And as for the water resistant, Xiaomi's been doing some crazy stuff now. We got IP68 and IP69, something we see on the flagships. Pretty good. It means if you drop your phone accidentally in water, it's gonna be okay. You shouldn't worry about it, but it's out of warranty though, so you'd better be careful and don't do it on purpose. It comes in 3 colors. Black, which is my dear friend Metimo's favorite color, green, and a yellow one, which is the signature of Poco. Now the yellow one is made of leather, but it's a fake leather to be honest. It's PU, polyurethane. But I mean, it's at least better than the glossy plastic. Okay, now let's talk about the display. The Poco X7 Pro features a 6.67-inch 1.5K 120Hz AMOLED display, and it's basically the same display as the previous generation, the Poco X6 Pro. So if you got one and planning to upgrade to this phone because of the display, I ain't gonna lie to you. That's a bad idea. You ain't gonna lose anything with that phone, just keep using it for 2 or 3 generations. It got HDR10+, which is capable of displaying 68 billion colors, which is pretty good. And the sweet spot for the display here on the Poco X7 Pro is brightness. While being an affordable smartphone, this phone's display is capable of getting up to 3200 nits of brightness. It's more than 1000 nits brighter than the best smartphone in the market, iPhone 16 Pro and the Pro Max. So I think it's better for Apple to take a note and make their next phone brighter, or they'll lose the competition. And if you guys are planning to roast me in the comments, please don't. I'm an Apple user too. I got 2 iPhones, so you could call me an Apple fan. And as for the protection, the Poco X7 Pro's display got the Gorilla Glass 7i. It's pretty durable and offers a great amount of protection against these scratches and accidental drops, so you should not be worried about it. But as Zach Nelson says, glass is glass and glass breaks, so you should use a screen protector. Alright, now let's talk about the cameras. The Poco X7 Pro features a dual camera setup in the back. A 50 megapixel main camera with f1.5 aperture, which lets a decent amount of light to get to the sensor, and it got OIS, the Optical Image Stabilization, and an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera. For God's sakes, I don't even understand why Xiaomi is doing this. I mean, you're selling this phone for around $400 and yet the camera is mediocre. I don't know if you remember or not, but the Poco X3 NFC had the best camera in the whole Poco phones, at least the X series. Enough of this, let's talk about the X7's camera. As you can see in the sample shots, in different scenarios we can take some pretty decent and detailed photos. But let me be honest with you, if you're someone who always takes pictures and uses the camera on their phones and the main reason to get this phone is the camera, to put it simple, this phone isn't for you. And for the videos, this phone, unlike the previous generation, is capable of shooting at 4K at 60 FPS. Finally, the previous generation was capped at the 4K and 30 FPS. And the front-facing camera is a 20 megapixel sensor, which is okay. Now let's get to the most important part of this phone, the performance. The Poco X7 Pro got the MediaTek Dimensity 8400 Ultra, which is exclusive for this phone only, which basically means that it runs at high clock speeds to perform better. Just like the collaboration that Samsung did with Qualcomm to make the Snapdragon 8 Gen something for Galaxy. Now, let's get a bit nerdy here. The Dimensity 8400 Ultra got all the A725 cores. One of them runs at 3.25 GHz, which is the main or the prime core. 3 of them run at 3 GHz, which are the performance cores which kick in when you're doing some heavy stuff or playing heavy games. And the other 4 run at 2.1 GHz, which are the efficiency cores. Now for the benchmarks, on AnTuTu 10, the Poco X7 Pro got on a score of 1.6 million, which is a bit higher than the Snapdragon 8S Gen 3, not the 8 Gen 3. which is pretty respectable for a mid-range device. And for the Geekbench 6, the Dimensity 8400 Ultra on the Poco X7 Pro got 1500 on the single core and 6200 on multi-core, which is pretty good. And for the graphics, it uses the Mali G720 graphics processor. And I gotta say, it's capable of running vast majority of games at highest graphics possible without any issues. Like for example, you can play the Call of Duty Mobile at the highest graphics with a solid 60 FPS. Though if you set the frame rate to Ultra, you get 90 FPS at very low graphics. And for Genshin Impact, it runs at 55 to 60 FPS at the highest graphics. That's what I call being a monster. And for the storage options, we got 3 variants. A 256GB of storage with 8 or 12GB of RAM, and a 512 version with 12GB of RAM. It's LPDDR5X and uses the UFS 4.0 for storage, so it's crazy. Okay, now let's talk about the battery. The Poco X7 Pro has a 6000 mAh battery, which is made of, guess what? Silicon carbon. What a surprise! Turns out this new battery technology became a trend for phones this year. Whether it's a flagship killer or a mid-range, companies seem to really love this silicon carbon thing. And it's a good thing, because while it's giving you a higher capacity battery, it'll age slower too. This means that after a couple of years of use, you're gonna be just fine. And it'll pretty much hold up most of its capacity compared to what it had at the first day. Now, the Poco X7 Pro performs really well. After a few hours of playing some games like PUBG Mobile or Call of Duty Mobile at the highest graphics, it loses around 20%. So you don't have to worry about or even think about it dying after a few hours of use. And even after heavy tasks, you'll still have around 40% of juice at the end of the day. And that means if you're a light user, like scrolling through social media or I don't know, taking a bunch of pictures, talking to a bunch of friends, like doing the same stuff, it'll easily last around 2 days. And even if it doesn't, it got 90-watt charger with hypercharge technology that could easily charge your phone from 0 to 100 for like 40 or 45 minutes. And you know what? The thing is that the charger is in the box. Samsung, Apple, nothing, Pixel, Google. Now for the software, the Poco X7 Pro comes with the HyperOS 2 and Android 15. Way better than the previous generation. For example, there's a new cool animation when playing with the control center or the notification center, and the overall aesthetics of the HyperOS 2 is pleasing. But the thing is that like all the other Chinese manufacturers, this phone is bombarded with bloatware. And if you don't like him, you can easily just delete him, but it's a waste of time. And on top of that, it comes with AI stuff too, like we got photo expansion or call translation. It's good to see AI stuff are coming to the mid-range devices too. It's 2025 after all. I mean, even the fridge comes with AI. And as for the software supports, normally Xiaomi supports their Poco phones for like 3 years of OS support and 4 years of security. And we're probably gonna see the same strategy this year. Not bad. Not good either. I mean, because some other companies are promising around 7 or 8 years. I know, it's for flagships, but I've heard some news that the next generation of the Galaxy A series, the A56, is gonna be supported for like 7 years. If that's not a true competition, I don't know what is. And as for conclusion, this phone, like I said, is a $400 smartphone with a crazy processor, a pretty nice display, a battery that could easily last a full day, and a decent camera. And as for the pricing, the 256GB of storage with 8GB of RAM is around $380, and the 512 variant with 12GB of RAM is around $420. Not bad, but I was expecting a better camera with this price range, to be honest. That's it. Thank you for watching till now, and if you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and ring the bell so you wouldn't miss the new videos. And don't forget to like the video and drop your nice comments, and I will answer to all of them. This is ByteForge, and see you in the next one.